I know we are all sick and tired of both the AI taking our jobs narrative and the AI skeptic narrative, where we are trying to gatekeep programming while pretending people outside our profession really care about code quality and best practices of clean architecture. But luckily for us, real software professionals are still active in the industry and they still have a lot to say about the future of our careers. In the past few days, both the creator of C++ and the creator of Zig shared their thoughts on the current state of programming, and, surprisingly, both of them seemed completely unaffected by the current hype and psychosis most of us are going through these days. And, I'm not going to lie, hearing people still focusing on what really matters is a breath of fresh air. So, in this Monday morning review, we'll look at the main ideas and takeaways real, hardcore software developers are bringing into this discussion and why their view of the future is probably more useful than another viral post explaining how a prompt is basically a senior engineer now. For a bit of context, Bjarne Stroustrup created C++ at Bell Labs, which at the time was about the best engineering lab on the planet. Among other things, Bell Labs gave us Unix, C, and a small little thing called a transistor. Andrew Kelly, on the other hand, created Zig roughly 4 decades later, mostly alone, after quitting his job in 2018 to run a non-profit that made $670,000 last year. I'm mentioning the money because it tells you where Kelly is standing. He pays himself $154,000 a year, which is the median senior engineer salary in New York, and when the interviewer floated a hypothetical $100 million with no strings attached, his answer was that he'd stick it in the bank, never fundraise again, and would still refuse to grow the team past 10 people since he has no interest in spending his life managing 100 people. I don't know about you, but I find it refreshing to see that there still are passionate people out there building serious technology without immediately turning it into a growth-at-all-costs startup, then selling it to Anthropic and rewriting the whole codebase using LLMs. Don't worry, we'll get back to this one in a minute. Kelly was in the news recently because he banned AI-generated contributions. The reason is straightforward, and we heard it in the past with projects like curl. In short, these contributions are mostly the kind of garbage that burns through maintainers' time. For context, at the moment, Zig has over 200 open pull requests and only a small group of people available to review them. But the open PR count and the wasted hours are not the main driver for his decision. The reason actually worth talking about is something Kelly calls contributor poker. The idea is that reviewing an outside contribution is never really about one specific patch. If all he wanted was the code, it'd be faster to write it himself. The real point of accepting contributions is mentorship. Basically, you review someone's work because this is how a drive-by contributor slowly turns into a regular, and a regular eventually turns into someone you trust with the core. So every review is a bet where you are trying to decide if this is a person you can invest time in, who'll be a better systems programmer on the other side and maybe stick around, or is this someone who shows up once and vanishes? And this touches on a very important topic in today's world. Ensuring that competent people continue to enter the ecosystem is a key responsibility for any serious software project. Unfortunately, this part of the process has been largely ignored in the past couple of years. Everyone is so focused on optimizing workflows with AI that almost nobody wants to invest in training juniors anymore. I'm sure we'll all get to enjoy the consequences of these brilliant decisions in a few years when there's nobody left in the office who can cover for you when you're sick or need a vacation. But if you wanted to find the one person least likely to be an AI skeptic, it would probably be Bjarne Stroustrup. His entire career has been about handing more work to the machine. He'll tell you that compilers today beat handwritten assembly in most cases, and that the clever, hand-optimized code people wrote in the 90s is often slower today because the hardware has moved underneath it. His whole philosophy is that you write at a high level, let the compiler do the work, and only reach under the hood for the 2 or 3% of code where it actually matters. He even has a name for this, and it is called negative overhead abstraction. The core idea is that a well-written abstraction doesn't cost you performance, and it can actually be faster than the clever low-level version you'd write by hand, mostly because the compiler has more information to work with than you do. So, this really is a man who has spent 40 years arguing that the machine should do more of your job. So when this specific person says AI-generated code is a problem, it's worth understanding why, because it is not the reflex of someone who fears automation. But before discussing his objections, please let me tell you a few words about today's sponsor. Are you tired of wrestling with a fragmented AI stack? Building modern AI applications usually means you're stuck patching together an operational database, a separate vector database, embedding models, and a search engine. Managing these separate systems requires complex pipelines. This increases your total cost of ownership and introduces data staleness, so your AI answers questions based on outdated information. Enter MongoDB. It is the data platform for AI that collapses these three layers into a single unified architecture, MongoDB. With MongoDB's flexible document model, you can store your source data right alongside its vector embeddings. Because there is no data movement between disjointed systems, your AI models have instant access to the freshest data. Plus, it integrates seamlessly with major model providers and standard frameworks such as LangChain and Llama Index. Simplify your architecture, reduce complexity, and speed up your time to market using a single API. Discover how to build smarter applications at mongodb.com today. Back to the video, Strauss-Trapp outlines that an LLM is trained on existing code, which means it can only ever produce a remix of code that already exists. It imitates old code, and it inherits old code's bugs and old code's performance characteristics. And Bjarne's entire job since the 80s is getting people to stop writing code the old way and adopt the newer, better techniques the language has grown. Some would argue that C++ is actually helping people do the opposite, but that's a discussion for another day. So from where he's standing, the tool is structurally pointed backwards. It's very good at producing more of the thing he spent his career trying to get people to move away from. An interesting point he's making is that when a human makes a change, that change is localized. You know roughly what got touched, so when something breaks you know where to look. With an LLM, the relationship between what you asked for and what actually changed isn't stable. Tweak the prompt a little and it can rewrite far more than you expected, which means every change is a fresh round of rechecking the whole output. On top of that, it tends to generate more code than a person would for the same task, so there's simply more surface area to verify in the first place. And the volume of output code is actually a very known problem. The team behind Ban, which is quickly transitioning from a JavaScript runtime to an LLM add-on, decided to use Claude to rewrite its entire codebase from Zig to Rust. I'm not even going to get into the reasons behind this exercise, because I'm sure we'll get to read an Anthropic blog post praising Claude for writing an entire JS runtime from scratch. It would not be the first time they have done this. What I find fascinating is that the rewrite itself resulted in 400,000 lines of additional code and too many issues to count here. So let me clarify that. The Zig project had around 500,000 lines of code, and after the rewrite, it got to close to 1 million lines of code. Of course, Ban creator and now Anthropic employee Jared Sumner noted that the rewrite successfully passed 99.8% of Ban's pre-existing test suite on Linux. But then, the community looked under the hood and found massive underlying debt. Because the translation was a literal file-by-file port from a language with manual memory management to one with strict compile time rules, the AI took a massive shortcut to make the code compile by spamming unsafe blocks everywhere. For those unfamiliar with Rust, the unsafe keyword disables a specific set of compiler-enforced guarantees inside a controlled scope. This is not really considered a bad practice, but it comes with a very strict expectation that the unsafe code has to be small, intentional, and justified. So they took a codebase written in a language with manual memory management, rewrote it into a language whose entire selling point is that the compiler stops you from making memory mistakes, and to get the translation to actually compile, the AI reached for the one keyword that switches those guarantees back off, and it reached for it everywhere. But regardless of all the AI slop we're used to by now, both Bjarne and Kelly agree the biggest issue in the industry is the people who are supposed to exist in 10 years and currently aren't being made. Bjarne puts it plainly. Companies want to get rid of junior developers because there are a lot of them and they're expensive to train. But a senior is just a junior that someone bothered to invest in for a decade. That's the same point Kelly makes with contributor poker from the opposite end of the field. The review is a good mechanism for knowledge transfer. Someone who knows explaining it to someone who doesn't should not be considered overhead getting in the way of the work. And that brings us to the awesome trivia of the day. Right now, the airline industry is living through the exact scenario I just described. In the US, pilots are required by law to retire at 65, so a known number of senior captains walk out the door every single year. Of course, you can't just hire a replacement captain, because a captain is a first officer who has spent years in the right seat learning the job from the person who's now retiring. So, when a captain leaves, an airline has to promote from within, which opens a first officer vacancy, which cascades all the way down the roster to the entry level. A few years back, when the retirements and the travel rebound hit at the same time, the bottleneck was a shortage of qualified captains, so over 500 regional aircraft got parked because of it. Flights disappeared from small airports where the regional route was the only one anybody flew. The forecasts have the gap staying open into the 2030 because a freshly licensed pilot still needs 3 to 5 years of accumulating hours before an airline will put them up front. So get ready, because that's where we'll all be in a couple of years. If you liked this video, you should consider joining our community where I'm posting more dedicated weekly content. Please don't forget to smash all the buttons, and until next time, thank you for watching.